All right. So anyway, as I was saying in the last video, like this as a gigging guitar, like I said, like I know some people, I've been playing Mike Gibson live for years and years and years, but like I'm talking like the worst conditions of bars, like where it's hot, sweaty, muggy. You got drunkards everywhere, people sweating on it, people spilling beer on it, stuff like that. Yeah, this guitar has been abused, not by me, but just by like taking it to jam nights and gigs and stuff like that, and I let other people use it, right? So this is the type of guitar you do that. Now, it sounds good enough, but what makes this guitar sound better is that the action on it is really, really good. And because it's really, really good, you can almost shred on it like an electric guitar, which your playing will trump tone. Your playing and how well you play will trump tone every single time. Sometimes even guys that are not that great as singers, but they're such good players, that they put on such a good show in the presentation of their show that absolutely nobody realized. They're like, man, that guitar sounds so good. It's so great. You know, whatever. And then people say, how much? You must have paid like thousands of dollars for it. And it's like, no. But acoustic guitars usually, if they're well made, and this is well made, it's cheaply made, but it's well made. This is an Ibanez AEL-10. I know I didn't, but I've done lots of reviews on this thing over the years. But 20 years, like 20 years with this guitar. Yeah, you just can't knock it. And of course, the people with the more expensive guitars can be a bit snobbish with, oh, well, that's not a professional guitar. Professional is more about how you play than what you're playing. But yeah, so when I say it's as good as and it'll hold its own, what I'm talking about is I'm going to tune this guitar up, and I've played this guitar a couple of gigs where it was hot, muddy and humid out, and I don't remember touching up the tuning at all during the night out of a 3-hour show, right? Like this thing, you tune it, it just kind of stays there. But a lot of that has to do with the polyethylene finish. That's what protects it, but that's also what dampens the tone a bit. But that said, when you're playing through the preamp anyway live, you're going to lose some of that tone anyway, right? Because miking a guitar live is, if you're sitting and playing, it can work, but miking a guitar is really meant more for the studio. Yeah, you might get slightly better sound, but with people running around the room, things getting shake, big trucks driving by the the place you're playing, the mics pick all that up. Like the vocal mic, you have to have it, but just being able to plug into the preamp, it sounds good enough. If you can dial in a PA pretty good, yeah, it's going to sound good enough. So even if it doesn't sound like a $5,000 Taylor, it will sound good enough. But I know the Taylors that sound really good and the Gibsons that sound really good and stuff like that, they have lighter finishes on them, right? That's what's giving you the sound. I remember a friend of mine had a TAC 12 string. This thing, it had almost no volume projection whatsoever, but it was just it's the nicest sounding 12 string. I could still hear the thing in my head. God rest him. For Rick, he let me play that guitar live a few times. I'm like, this thing just sounds so glorious. But yeah, because it had the satin finish, he had to, really take good care of staying on top of the the maintenance and stuff, because things would shift around being such a delicate finish. But the sound, like if I was going to go into the studio with a 12 string, it would have been that one. And he paid like $700-800 for it, and it was just fantastic. Now that said, I've tried Gibson. One of the nicest sounding guitars I ever heard was that Gibson Hummingbird there I played a few years ago in Long McQuaid, $3,600 guitar. I'd love to have that in the studio. I don't know if I could, I'd play it live if I was getting like $500 a night kind of thing, maybe even $300 a night. So that, but like I said, if you want to ruin a guitar, doesn't matter if it's an electric or an acoustic, play it live. And if you really want to ruin it, play it live in the winter, a Canadian winter. You will definitely ruin that guitar. From the summer to the winter, yeah. So guitars like this do serve a great purpose, as if you get them set up like this, didn't come set up the way it plays now. I had to lower the bridge, still on the original bridge too. Like that's the crazy part. Never done a truss rod adjustment, never had to. Next straightest thing, 5-piece necks. Like Ibanez, one thing that's great about them is that absolutely wonderfully designed. You know what I mean? Whether you like the brand, I've never had a problem with an Ibanez, whether electric or acoustic. They do tend to use cheaper woods on a lot of even on some of their upper end stuff, but it functions. And reliability, like I know a friend of mine, he plays Ovation, and he's been playing Ovations for years. And he says, Reg, if you're going to gig, he says, get one of those. He goes, they don't sound as good as a wood instrument for sure because of the fiberglass back. And I have played them, and I've played Ovations quite a bit, but I never owned one. But I'm like, if I was just going to be hardcore gigging all year round, yeah, the Ovation is the way to go, because that thing, I mean, get a carbon fiber one. You know what I mean? You never have to worry about anything, you know what I mean? Like, but you will lose tone, you know? So the tone snobs, it's like, man, I don't know. A guitar like this played really well, that stays perfectly intonated and perfectly in tune pretty much the whole way up the neck, is pretty darn hard to beat. You know what I mean? And not to have to tune in a bar, an acoustic guitar tuning in a bar, even with a tuner, like tuners are accurate, don't get me wrong. But when you got like all kinds of people making all kinds of, like there's all kinds of different frequencies coming in, sometimes the tuner gets confused, even if it's like completely internal. I've always found tuners, no matter what price range of the guitar, if like the audience is fairly quiet, no problem. But if the audience is really noisy and there's a lot of background noise, even the internal tuners can get confused. So, you know, you're trying to tune your low E, and it's picking up a D note a sympathetic D note somewhere, right? So there's tricks to tuning live, but the best thing is to never have to tune live. So I'm waiting for the day where they have some sort of an Evertune bridge on acoustic guitars. That'd be really cool. But until that day, this will do it. But yeah, I do need to upgrade guitars. And I'm not bashing on I'm not one of those guys that anything cheaper is always better than the expensive stuff. No, the fretwork on the upper end guitars are usually a lot better. But what I'm saying is, bang for the buck, this was a really great guitar. There wasn't too many guitars in this price range that I've seen like other people buy that have held up for 20 years like this thing. Again, yeah, it stripped out the tuner, two tuners on it, but like, it was like 5 years ago when 4 or 5 years ago when I stripped out the other tuner, not even. So 15, 20 years on a $400 guitar, that's not bad. Now, if you don't drop guitar polish on the electronics, maybe even the electronics will last that long. What I'm going to do is, I don't want to put any real money into this guitar, but what I'm probably going to do is get one of those Dean pickups. And I have one in the, it was in this guitar originally. After that, kind of shorted out. But yeah, I might or I might not, because I do plan on playing live as much as possible. If I can't find a band, the next way to make money is a one-man band thing. So anyway, I'll leave it at that. And yeah. Oh, how am I doing for time here? Time always goes so fast on these. I can't see. Okay, yeah. Okay, so the DARCO strings that I got, they come in a little bit weird how the packages. So you get, like, for example, you get the E and the G together, the A and the B together. At least those ones are together. And then you get the D and the high E together. I guess they did that just so it's easier, especially between the G and the D. There's like, this is like 25 millimeter or 25 thousandths of an inch, and this is like 32 thousandths of an inch. You know, like when it's on the guitar, you can kind of tell this is thicker than this, but when they're side by side, it's kind of hard to tell which one's the thicker one. So anyway, yeah, there we go. And then the way I wind them in is I put them in. Usually what I do with the E is I pull the string out to about the third peg, and then I start to wind in. Maybe I bring it back a bit, play around with it. You want at least 3 windings per string on the big ones. I tend to want 4. I say 5. On the big string, you might not get 5 easily without it trying to come over the top of the post. So I pull it through, but I always try to get at least 5 on the high strings. So I put the string in, I pull it through, I pull the string down to about here, and then I just grab the string from here and I push it back. I put tension, as you know, I grab it and I pull tension keep tension on it so everything's, not, taut. And then I just grab my string winder and I wind it on. And this way, when it winds the string up, which gives it more level to the nut, which helps because like when your string is like all the way down to the bottom of the nut, you get too much angle on your nut. So then you tend to get creaking and stuff like that. Now there's other things around. You can put graphite in the nut and stuff like that. But anyway, there we go.